I love being in front of you guys because the first 10 years of my career were spent in a consumer electronics store selling what you guys all make. In fact, I met some of the people who I sold their gear back in the 1980s. I brought the Oakley Airwave goggle out because this was part of the inspiration for this book. I started seeing products like this that were in the planning stages. This has a little computer screen inside the goggles and a sensor platform. It can tell how fast you're going on the ski mountain. It can show you where on the mountain you are with mapping technology. And it can tell how long your jump was when you jump off of a ski jump or something like that. And the glass I was wearing was the Google glass, so I'll talk about that later. But what I started noticing about 20 months ago was 5 separate trends that were coming together to make new kinds of products like this possible. And what are the 5 trends? And let me get my glasses so I can see. The first trend is mobile and wearable computers. So, you know, we all have smartphones now. Those smartphones have 7 sensors in them, and soon we're going to see a whole range of wearable computers. In fact, I'm looking forward to going to the Consumer Electronics Show in January because I know a lot of them are going to be announced there. You know, here is a Stanford student made this Epiphany eyewear. They're putting a camera, a 1080p camera, into the sunglass frames. These are prototypes, but they're coming out soon. The goggle there, the computer is built by Recon Instruments, and that's the inventor of that. And Google Glass, and Base's heart monitor, which goes on your wrist. And we're seeing all sorts of new mobile computers that we're going to be wearing soon. The second force was big data. I kept seeing all sorts of new data innovation, new startups that were doing new kinds of databases. This is not the world of Oracle anymore. It's the world of MongoDB, and Mongo is starting to seem old. And it's only been out 6 years, right? It's only a 6-year-old company. I'm seeing a lot of location databases are doubling in size. You know, not just Foursquare, but Facebook check-ins, Google Maps. Waze just got bought in the last year for $1.3 billion by Google. And the amount of data is doubling. And anytime you see a doubling effect, you should know that there's potential new companies to build on top of that, and it will affect the kinds of products you're going to be able to build in the future. I mean, this Oakley goggle relies on knowing where it is on the ski mountain. And in fact, you can see your friends and your kids, if they have an Android or an iPhone with that app on it, you can see where they are on the mountain as well, which is really cool. I started seeing the amount of sensors going up exponentially. You know, walking around the consumer electronics floor last year, I saw 3D sensors from PrimeSense. I saw these plant sensors at some of the digital experience shows. And I'm just seeing a ton of new sensors coming out. And I'm seeing even sensors on your cell phone are now being used in different ways. Here, a company made a little dome for the camera sensor on your iPhone, and it turns it into a light sensor for a professional photographer. I'm seeing the social media data doubling. Twitter today has 1.3 or 1 billion tweets every 36 hours to 48 hours. That's doubling. So in 14 months, when we get together, it'll be 2 billion tweets in that time frame. And that alone is getting many new kinds of companies to build. So what are these 5 forces? When you bring them together, what does it mean? What does it mean? We're going to have very personalized product in the future. I went and talked with the guys at Oakley, and they said, we can know everything about you and change the product for you. This Google Glass, if you put it on, has my email, my calendar, my stocks, my weather, my phone calls, my tweets, on and on. It's very personalized to me. If you put it on, it doesn't really serve you that well, right? We're seeing all sorts of new companies. This is Shoes of Prey in Australia that's making all sorts of custom shoes. You saw Moto X creating new kinds of custom personalized phones with your own color. We're seeing all sorts of new things about personalization. We'll get into that in a second. The second thing it means for consumers, for us, is that we're gonna, now that I know everything about you and where you've been, I can get ahead of you. I can start saying, hey, you know, tonight you were gonna go to the movie, why don't you make a reservation at the at a great restaurant near the movie theater. And I can start suggesting things for you. If you have a phone with Google Now on this, you're already getting a little taste of where this world is going. Google Now tells you the next meeting you're going to and says, oh, there's a lot of traffic, you better leave early, that kind of thing. For businesses, it means two things. It means that the business itself is going to see everything about everything. And I didn't even understand this until I sat down at a SRI where the internet was developed and Siri and a whole bunch of stuff. And they had a workstation there that was watching everything in real time that the worker was doing and was storing it in real time on a database. You know, obviously this workstation today is being built for a drone operator so that there's some accountability of what did that person see, did they process it properly, did they actually see the information they were supposed to, and then did they make the right decision? You know, that's an example, but that's coming. And you might think, well, I don't know. But if you take a ride on Uber, how many people have ever used Uber? We talked about, wow, this is a pretty tech-savvy audience. Usually it's a little bit less than this. But Uber, Travis, who runs Uber, can see every transaction, every customer, every piece of inventory, everything about his business is in his mobile phone. And he can see it in real time. This means employees are going to be rated differently, right? When I worked at Microsoft, I was rated every 6 months. Well, Uber drivers are rated every time they drive somebody. And by the way, you as a customer are rated too. Think about that one. If you destroy the car, you don't get picked up anymore. Right? It's the second thing it means for business, and this is a more deeper one, is that we're going to know our customer in very deep detail. And today, we really don't know our customers very well. Here's Christy Wells. She runs the social media club. She just met Paloma Faith, who's a famous UK singer. At her first concert, she clicks like on Facebook, and then Audience FM grabs all sorts of data about her and shows it to the artist. And that's hardly the only example of knowing your customer better. And we'll get into this. It means, you know, all these new mobile technologies are changing our cities. You know, my son, who's 19, wants to live in the city. When I was a kid, I didn't want to live in the city. That was the bad place to live, right? But why is that happening? Why is there a shift? And we in the book, we call it the new urbanist, that people want to move. Because there's services on your phone that you can get access to that I can't get in my rural community anymore. You can get groceries delivered to you. You can get eBay now, if I need an Apple power supply, I can have it delivered to my office in San Francisco within an hour, right? And there's more and more and more of these services coming every day. I have On Time, which lets me see all sorts of things like spa treatments near me and other services. This is changing our city, and we could spend a lot of time on how cities are changing, but I want to get deeper into what's coming for you guys, the consumer electronics world. You know, part of how cities are changing is the car is changing. You guys have seen this if you walk the show floor at the Consumer Electronics show. You've seen, you know, a Chevy Volt now, it gathers 100 to 200 megabytes per second of data. Now, it throws most of that data away, but the self-driving car gathers 800 megabytes per second as it's driving around, and that LiDAR is spinning around. By the way, I don't know if you guys know the guy who made the LiDAR, the thing that's spinning on the top of a self-driving car, but that's David Hall. He runs Velodyne subwoofers, right? I sold his subwoofers in the 1980s, and now he's building these things. Really, really crazy, cool guy. But we're going to see a lot of changes in cars, right? We're seeing insurance companies wanting to put a black box in your car that'll study your driving behavior and give you discounts if you're a good driver. You're seeing, you know, Teslas, the handles aren't even available if you're not near the car, so it's pretty hard to steal that car, right? And you're obviously seeing the self-driving and the safety features that are coming out. To me, it means that our marketing is about to radically change. We call it pinpoint marketing. I actually shot this picture at the Consumer Electronics Show last year, or this year, I mean, at the PrimeSense booth. They're putting the 3D sensors. I don't know if you know PrimeSense, but they make a 3D sensor, and they license that technology to Microsoft for the Xbox Kinect sensor. So the guy who built this sensor basically designed the Xbox Kinect. And they're putting these things over your head, and they're so sensitive, they can see where you're touching. They can see what box of cereal you're pulling out. And so in real time, they can tell you're going for a box of Cheerios, and they can have a display next to you, and they can do things in real time. Now, mostly they're using it for shopping analytics, but I was just at a privacy conference, and they were arguing, what should the sign on the front of one of these stores say? You're entering a safe store, and you're being stalked by these technologies, right? And let's talk about how social media is changing marketing, right? The screen over here is from a company called Vintank. Now, Vintank is in the wine industry up in California, and they study anytime you say something about wine on Twitter and Facebook and Foursquare and other social media. Already today, they are seeing 1.1 million tweets a day that have something to do with wine, like I love Chardonnay, I'm drinking Sutter Home, I just visited Paradox, something like that. When you tweet something, you're being studied and put into a database at Vintank. Now, they are now putting little geofences around all the wineries. So if you tweet from inside one of those geofences, or even use an app and cross over, they know something about you. Now, let's think about customer service, how this is going to change. So if you come from Sutter Home and you just tweeted, I love Sutter Home, that targets you as a customer. You might not like it, but I know that you like $10 bottles of wine, right? And you're not a very astute customer, right? And I'll ask you, when you come to my winery, maybe I run Paradox, and I'll say, hey, were you just at Paradox? I just saw you on my mobile phone, right? Or on my Vintank. And you'll go, yeah. Did you like it? Do you really like it? And I'll know exactly what kind of customer you are, so I don't go and bring out the $400 bottles of wine and try to hit you up for the $80 tastings. No, I'll stay at the $10, $15, $20 level, right? And I'll serve you better. We'll have a better experience. And we're already being targeted this way, right? And let's be honest. If you go to Camus and then come to my place, I know you're a different kind of customer, and I'm going to upscale you. And we might say, well, that's not happening. Well, when you go to the Castello di Amorosa winery up in Napa, they do this manually. They have a sign that says, hey, are you an Instagram user? Yeah. But my dad's not. My dad would go, what? What's Instagram? If you're an Instagram user, you're a guy who's going to go on the photo tour. So they're going to automatically put you on a different tour than if you're just like my dad. My dad is just there to drink the wine and spend some money. Now let's talk about this new thing called low energy Bluetooth, because this is enabling these new kinds of customized experiences. How many people have seen one of these little radios before? You guys are in the industry, so that tells you these are brand new. In fact, I just got my first 3 about a week and a half ago. So this is the CEO of Broadcom, which you guys all know this guy. He builds a lot of the Wi-Fi chips inside your cell phones. But he's building these new low-energy Bluetooth radios. And these are about $10 wholesale. You can put them anywhere. They run for about 2 years on a coin battery, so you can stick them everywhere. In fact, I could stick one on every table here, right? And if you're sitting at one of these tables next to one of these radios with, for instance, an iPhone with iOS 7, your phone will see how close it is to that radio. And we can now set up a new kind of customer service. So you could tell your Siri, hey, I want a beer at this table, and you don't even need to say anything. I know exactly what table you're sitting at because of how close you are to that radio underneath that table. Now, this sounds like science fiction, but Apple and the Baseball Association just made a deal. They're going to put these in every baseball stadium before the beginning of the next season. And Apple is going to have consumer electronics devices that are going to change as you walk around the stadium. So, think about a new watch that you're walking around, and it's changing what it says on the watch, or the color of the watch, based on where you are in the stadium. And that can augment your customer service at a pretty deep level, right? This stuff is going to affect, I think, every product. And here's some examples. GoPro was on the show floor last year, and they started 200 yards from my house, so I know these guys pretty well. And they're talking about building a contextual camera, a camera that doesn't just capture the grid of pixels on a sensor the way that their current product does, but one that actually grabs your Facebook information and puts that up on the picture, right? We do this manually. If I took a picture of you, I could tag everybody in the photo. We did that last night at dinner, right? But we had to do it manually. Why not automatically? It's coming. And by the way, how many people have iOS 7 on an iPhone? Yeah, you're all carrying a low energy Bluetooth radio. Think about that one. My iPhone can see your radio if you enabled it and turned on a piece of software. So now we can change the kind of customer, the kind of things that our products can do, right? You take a standard set of headphones and you put a little sensor on it. Now this sensor's a prototype, but you put a sensor on it and you put a little bit of compute on the headphones, and you dramatically change what's possible with audio. This Dysonics makes a little sensor, and it knows where you're aimed. So it knows, full time. And, if you go to a band tonight or a performance, the band is always out in one spot. Even though you turn your head, the band stays there. Well, in current headphones, the band moves. So it's screwing with your mind. And the worst, the band is inside your head, because that's what audio does. And these guys put the band out in front of you and keep it in the same place. And it's mind-blowing. When I listen to that, I was like, whoa, that just changed my whole relationship to audio. And it's very exciting. JBL, by the way, just announced headphones that don't do the spinning thing, but put the band out in front of you again through the use of this kind of processing. And it does dramatically improve the product. By the way, Steve Jobs, when he went to Park, this is at Park, he found something called a Macintosh, right? Well, I went to Park, and this guy showed me inkjet printed circuitry. And he says they have a machine right now that can inkjet print 50 transistors and a little radio on anything, like a milk carton, for almost a few cents, because it's inkjet printing, material onto stuff. Now, this is a little bit of an R&D project, but in 5 years, we might have that on your boxes to manage your inventory or do all sorts of stuff, The first transistor radio only had one transistor. What can you do with 50? I don't know. It's changing our relationship. The costs of these sensors coming down are changing our relationship to existing technologies. Here, I was at the Consumer Electronics Show, and these kids showed me a breathometer. Mark Cuban just invested in this company. I think gave them $2 million. But they sell a little breath sensor now that senses your alcohol level, and it costs $49. Now, the cops have had these for a long time, but they cost $500, $600, $1,000 because they were hard to make. Now, not so much. So my brother owns a bar in Virginia, and he can buy 10 of these and leave them around and play new kinds of drinking games. He can optimize the amount of alcohol being used by every person in the bar. And then, if you go over the line, he can call you an Uber, right from your phone. Because he'll know you're drunk, and he doesn't want you to get killed, because that's a liability. We're seeing all sorts of new innovations in healthcare coming. We saw a little bit of an example with the health spot that was just demoed. We're going to be soon wearing sensors. I just walked through a stealth startup that has a full-on lab, a full-on fab up in San Francisco, and they're making new kinds of blood monitoring sensors. And we're seeing, the Nike fuel bands and the Fitbits and the Jawbone Ups, but that market is about to explode, and soon we're going to be wearing little badges on our skin to study stuff. And Qualcomm has a wireless network that hooks these things all together without you knowing anything about the wireless network. It's really pretty cool. And then when I do this talk and talk about these new five new things, everybody comes up to privacy. And by the way, this is the guy who invented the PrimeSense sensor. But we're now playing new kinds of games because of the sensors, and this new game that Ellen DeGeneres is selling, and it's very hot in San Francisco. They're playing it on the subways. It's recording the video, right, as you're playing the game, and so there's all sorts of new privacy problems in this. I don't have the answers. I'm all in. You can study me all you want. In fact, this Google Glass has an eye sensor. It's watching me. It's a new kind of data that hasn't been studied on a consumer electronics device before. And a lot of you are thinking about how do we do new things with sensors to augment people's lives, but it does bring up a new area of privacy and that we could have a discussion with. I don't have the answers. Maybe this would be a good point to kick it off and have a little bit of a conversation, though. What do you guys think about this? Anybody pushing the edge with sensors and wearable computers and thinking about this? I mean, it's going to be a big trend at CES next year, right? How many wearable devices are going to be at CES on the show floor? He says 147. I think there might be even a few more than that, right? The new iPhone has a motion sensor in it, right? I think, in fact, I know Google and Apple are developing new contextual operating systems that are going to tell whether you're walking, skiing, running, shopping, driving. There's already apps like Moves that knows 4 of those contexts, right? Walking, running, driving, and biking. And they said within a few months they'll have more. There's a new company coming out in December called IM2 SRV, uses standard webcam, any camera on any cell phone or any laptop, and can look at you and tell your age. It's really freaky. The days of being that carnival guy guessing your age, no, that's over. Gonna be done instantly. And your gender and your sentiment, right? Are you happy, sad? It tells you. In fact, there's new camera. I just saw a new camera app at my house that uses that sentiment to decide when to take the picture. Is everybody in the photo smiling? And that's the moment that the shutter gets pushed, right? Automatically. So I'm seeing a lot of these technologies seep into our lives all over the place, right? Anybody freaked out by this new world? You guys are all excited, I know. You guys see billions of dollars in this world, so thank you very much. And I'll be around. I have some books, and thank you very much for listening to me. Don't leave yet.
Don't leave yet.
Uh-oh.
I know there's someone in the audience who's going to ask a question. Thank you, Michael Petricone. Oh, I'm sorry. Lloyd, are you asking a question? A question or statement?
He wants a statement.
All right. Is Lloyd going to ask a question or make a statement?
I'll make a question. I'll make you.
Give him a microphone.
Okay, a couple things. I don't want anybody to be freaked out, but there's so many good things for life in here because we do a thing with geo-boundary fences around places to protect children.
Yep.
And if a predator breaks in his geo-boundary fence, it sends a signal direct to them that they penetrate an area, protected area that gives us like 30 seconds to get out before the device goes off on their leg that leaves a smell.
Yep.
That it's a trackable smell. Also, we can track them. I don't care if they go 30 floors down in a parking lot. We can still track them right to where they're at.
Yeah.
And using some other technology. But these are good things.
Yeah.
It's very good things. And it's like CEA, it brings good things to life.
Now, I talked with Mark Andreessen, one of the most famous VCs, and he developed the Netscape browser and stuff. And he talks about that we're going to give up our privacy because we're going to get utility. We just have to do it in the right way so that people don't get freaked out and that there is the real utility to go along. We all use credit cards, right? That was the largest gifting of private information to a corporation that mankind has ever seen. And we're all happy with it because we got a lot of utility by doing that, right? But we are in a new world where we're soon, in 10 years, they're going to know what you're thinking. I was wearing a galvanic skin response sensor.
So does that scare you?
It sort of does, and I'll give you a story. I was wearing a galvanic skin response sensor at one of the conferences I was at, the Next Web in Amsterdam. And the guy who built the sensor, it's like $200, and he said within 3 years it's going to be a $40 sensor, was watching how nervous I was while giving the speech, and he had it on a graph on his iPhone. He knew exactly how nervous I was.
I was at a congressional hearing testifying, and I was watching the guy next to me. He had a pulse monitor on, and I could see right before he was about to speak, I was watching his pulse go up. It was very entertaining. And, our own Sean Duberback. Where's Sean?
I think that was
Sean does it on stage.
A fascinating and very insightful presentation.
John Chalm, AudioVox.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Really very, very interesting to think about the future and what's going to happen.
Yeah.
From my personal perspective, I really cherish my privacy, and I really don't feel that comfortable about having all this information widely available to anybody about what I'm wearing, what I'm doing, what I'm thinking, if I have to go to the bathroom. I mean, this is no end to it.
Are you reading my tweets?
John, have you ever checked out those web photos of you in that tiny bathing suit?
There is a gap here. I think there's a new digital divide coming, not between people who can afford technology and who can't, but people who are going to be like, I'm not doing this, and people like me who are like all in. I am already winning at life because I use this technology, and here's an example. I use this app called TripIt on my phone, and I never turn off my phone when I'm on a plane. I'm sorry. I don't agree with the rules, and I was in the Boeing airplane where they did the Wi-Fi testing 9 years ago, and I know it's bullshit. And soon we will have new rules that let us use devices while, and please do push that, keep pushing that, because we all know it's bullshit, right? But I was in the United Airlines, and we were just about to leave the gate, and TripIt said, your plane is being canceled, and had a link to the other airline that had 3 seats left. I got one of those seats. If you were on the plane, you wouldn't have. You would have been spending the night in Chicago. Welcome, United Airlines. So we are in a game of life, and you have to decide, are you in on this technology or out? And if you're in, you will get benefits, but you will have to give up some of your privacy. It's a choice you're going to have to make.
So John, when you go to a tailor, do you tell them your measurements, or you just buy off the rack?
Yeah. Well, and talk about tailors, I visited a company up in Seattle that's using the Kinect sensor, and they can already tell your body measurements down to a 1/4 inch. And so now you can order something off the internet and get it custom made for you, and you know it fits because they made it perfectly to your body, right? Good stuff. No, you know the Shoes of Prey company? Their shoes are made in China, but they have more than 100 million variations of shoes. Rihanna got her shoes from that company.
So what happens if that device and that information matches up with a dating website?
You don't already know that I'm a fat white guy? Dating websites are another thing altogether, man. There are going to be systems, and already are, that match you up. I mean, Tinder is a very hot app right now, and it does some of that matching, right?
We have a question from the Public Policy Innovation Technology
We'll get to
guru,
you.
Michael Petricone.
Hey, Robert, great presentation, by the way. It was
Thank you.
fantastic. Okay, so people generally seem to be okay with private companies knowing your information. You got your seat on the plane. That's
Yeah.
great. A lot of people seem quite freaked out by the government getting all your information,
Yeah.
reading your emails and listening to your phone calls. Is there a difference?
Yeah, one can kill you. Governments can kill, and here's an example, right? And that's why I know there's going to be a new digital divide. My wife is Iranian. One of her friends who grew up in Iran has whip marks on his back because the government wasn't happy that he was caught in the car with a girl. And they have religious laws there, right? And we don't have here in the United States. So governments go nuts once in a while. We all know this. And they can kill you. I know people who are in jail in China and Iran right now for what they've said on the internet. They don't have the same freedom of speech that we do here in the United States. It is a problem. And I don't see it going away in this post 9/11 world, right? Don't see it going away.
Yeah, you know.
By the way, I got an example of this, how it's leaking back into the public sphere. Tap and Go is a new company. I think it's really cool. You guys don't know about Tap and Go yet because it's only for college kids. But it's a new system that you put on your phone at 25 universities this fall. NYU is one of the universities. So if you wake up at NYU, you pay for everything on Tap and Go. And that's, I know because I get the bill. And it stalks you. And it was designed by an ex-Israeli surveillance officer who learned how people work while surveilling his society and understanding how people move around. And he said, oh, we know that people only visit 3 places for lunch. They go to the same 3 places over and over and over. They go to the same church. They go to the same school. They go to the same coffee shop every single morning. And we know this. So why doesn't the system watch you and learn that way? And that's exactly what it does. So when my son gets out of his university dorm, it says, would you like your normal iced latte? And he says, yep. And it puts the order in as he's walking to the coffee shop. The coffee shop has the order made by the time he's getting there. No waiting in line anymore. He just goes and picks it up and leaves. No trading Visa cards, no trading cash anymore. Everything's automatic. It's all automatic. And this is enabled by this new kind of surveillance society we live in, right?
So back to John's point, do you think there's an opportunity for companies that will respond to people like John and offer them protection, whether it's a special case or how to turn it off or apps or things like that?
In fact, the guy, I usually wear a shirt or pants from a guy named Scotty Vest or Scott Jordan. Scotty Vest is the company. And he's designing new kinds of pockets that are transmission protected. In other words, they block RFID and block cell phone and block everything, right? And I gave this talk at Maker Faire. You had Maker Faire here yesterday, Dale Dougherty. And one of the kids in the front row goes, I already have one. And he already made his own Faraday pocket. So the kids are already hacking this stuff so that they can be free of the man, right? we are gonna figure this out together. And figure out how to stay off the system and on the system, use the system for our own benefit.
So thinking forward 5 years, the International CES, what products or concepts would scare you the most, and what do you look forward to seeing?
The 3D sensors are so sensitive. You know, if you went to Prime Sense's booth last year, they had a projector up here and one of those sensors, and then they said, just draw on this table. No sensor on the table, it's just all above. It's so sensitive it can see how hard you're pressing on the table. So it did pressure sensitive writing with your finger. And General Motors, I had dinner with those guys, the engineering team, and they're saying, well, we're thinking of using these kinds of sensors to watch your eyelids, and we'll know you're falling asleep before the lids even close. And we'll be able to wake you up and keep you safe, or kick in an automatic system that doesn't let you drive anymore and pulls you over or something like that, right? This could save your life. So it is going to be.
Imagine if that's deployed in schoolrooms.
You know, a lot of our product today is over the freaky line already, right? The Moto X listens to me. The microphone is on all the time. I can say, okay, Google now, and it listens to me. Call my wife, you know? The new Apple iPhone has a fingerprint sensor. If you told me 10 years ago I'm going to be carrying a device that knows where I am and shares that with a lot of companies and has a fingerprint sensor, I'd be like, whoa, that's freaky, man.
Yeah, but if I told you 10 years ago you were using a device where you use your thumbs to communicate, you probably would have said I was crazy.
No, I had one 10 years ago, maybe 15 years ago. But this device, right, the sensors are firing full time. It's the first device that knows where I'm aimed and where my eyes are looking. 2 new inputs, and it's going to enable a new kind of human-machine interface. Now, whether this sells or not, I don't know, but we're going into a new world.
So is that what you're looking forward to, or is that what scares you?
No, I'm not scared by much of this stuff. I'm scared by governments going nuts.
So
my great-grandfather was arrested in Nazi Germany for speaking out in Germany against the Nazis. And so that's always in my head, that governments can go nuts and we have to be vigilant.
on the other hand, I was in dinner with the... I don't want to step on your closet. I was at dinner with the head of the Israeli Stock Exchange, and she had apparently created the Israeli security snooping system.
Yeah.
And her point a few weeks ago was, what are you, crazy? You're actually worried about that stuff in the U.S.? You are not doing anything yet.
Yep.
So, I mean, it's I guess,
True.
There's obviously a trade-off between security and privacy, and we're trying to figure out the balance.
Yep.
Right?
I mean, I'm TSA pre-approved, right? There was an article in the
You
New
might
York
not
Times.
be after today.
Well, you know. if I'm okay with an Iranian wife and we call Iran and I have Chinese friends, you know, I don't know. I don't know what they're looking for anymore.
I know. Those of us that fly a lot, that pre-approval is worth anything.
Yeah.
So,
But they're looking ahead of you.
Yeah.
They're using contextual systems to predict how much of a threat you are. So, yeah, if I say the wrong thing, they might pull it, you know, on the way back, and I'll have to wait in line again.
right, which is waiting in line is like the worst thing that could happen to us. Any other questions or comments?
Anybody else?
You know, I'm really.
I had a
we had-
question,
we had one
but
more.
Gary already asked it about the privacy, so I do have a comment. I was with the FCC when we did extensive testing
you
on your
introduce yourself?
handset. Oh, I'm sorry. Helena Mitchell.
Yeah, hi there, right there. Yeah.
And one person on a plane with their phone still on is okay, but if everybody on that plane keeps it on, you do cause interference to the
Not according to
mechanisms they're
Boeing when I
driving.
was on the plane. I was on the plane that did the testing.
Not if everybody had on, it would cause problems.
I think everybody already leaves it on.
Well,
You know?
again, I know way too much about this, Helena, and I respect your opinion, but there's very little evidence that's ever caused it. And the other thing is we have to separate in our minds those that are intentional transmitters versus those more passive products like an ebook. This started out, and, it actually went back to Lockerbie, Scotland, the plane that blew up, and it was a radio tape recorder that was found, and all products were banned for a week or two. And, that was one of my first things is to try to get that switch. Actually, it goes back to electric shavers in the early 1960s, and it was just considered the safer thing. And CEA actually, and our board had an extensive discussion about that. We took the position that, you know what, there's no evidence at all, but it's 10,000 feet. We're not going to object because the consequence of being wrong is so great.
Yeah.
But at this point, we're still talking about, and this is the whole report that came out of this committee, we're not talking about products which require transmission to work, which is the old cell phone.
Yeah.
Now there's Wi-Fi and there's other ways of dealing with it, and there's obviously a lot of, just video games. But the bottom line is, as flying has gotten more uncomfortable over time, the products have gotten better, and the bottom line here is that the products, that people want to use are usable. The other issue of telephones, which I referred to earlier, is, I don't know about you, but I get really annoyed when I hear people talking around me on the phone. For some reason, they talk louder.
Yep.
And they think they're more interesting. I don't know. They're not.
Because the other side says, I can't hear you, then you talk louder, and it gets bad.
But anyway, this isn't about me. This is about you. Any more questions?
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Well, Robert and I will be appearing in South by Southwest. I've just learned. Am I allowed to say that?
Yeah.
All right. So we have a joint gig going in March.
Yep.
So, and Robert is a hero, actually. There's so many people who follow him, and there's so many things he says. And just reading his feed lately, the last couple of weeks, he's really, really interesting. He has some really great news. And actually, you're an employee of Rackspace. I don't know if I pointed that out, but Rackspace actually, it's a great gig, by the way, because you go around and you go to interesting conferences. You speak
Well, a lot of you are customers of mine, so thank you very much.
There you go. So I gave a free plug for Rackspace. So thank you very much for coming. Great
you.
presentation.
Thanks.
It was fun, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was great.
I have to close.
Oh, yep.